Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. She is somebody that helps you harness the power of your mind. And lots of us going through many different challenges. Many times we don't even know why that's happening in our lives. There are reasons. Many times it goes back to our childhood and things that we've experienced in our past, but you don't know that until you know that. And it's not easy to know that unless you work with somebody like her. She's a Reiki practitioner, energy healer, shamanic healer. I could go nurse. I could go on and on and on. I've worked with her on a personal level. She's just amazing. And she's Danielle Marie White. She's back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I hope everyone out there is and have had a happy holiday.
I'm excited to talk with both of you. And when I say both of you, it's somebody that's joining us today, Teresa, who has worked with you like myself. Please tell us more, Danielle.
So Teresa and I met shortly after I moved here almost 2 years ago. And Teresa is the owner of the Happy Soul spiritual store. And she owns and operates that store. And I had never seen a harmonic egg before. And Teresa just welcomed me in with open arms and set me in the egg, told me all about it. And from there on, it was history. We've been friends ever since. And she's
wow,
a wonderful soul.
Teresa, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start with you and what you wanted to accomplish when you connected with Danielle? What was going on?
Well, I was about a year and a half into my business, opening my business. And so I knew of shamans. I knew that vaguely that they were healers, but I hadn't ever had them come into my orbit before until she whizzed into my center and introduced herself. And so from that point on, my life has been different and totally changed for the better. And I think everybody should have a shaman in their orbit to help them through life because she's amazing. Simply amazing.
I agree. And I want it from you what a shamanic healer is.
Well, until she came in, I couldn't have told you. It's someone that can help you with inner work, inner connections, and making those leaps into what it is that makes you tick and what you could be missing and what you need to work on for inner healing. It provides insight into things you weren't necessarily aware that were occurring or were still affecting you, and helps to give you a roadmap going forward if that's what you choose to work on.
And Danielle, when you started working with Teresa, what did you identify? I don't know how personal you want to get here. That's up to you guys. But what were you feeling initially?
Initially, I could feel her warmth and her presence. But I also felt a lot of anxiety and nervousness residing inside. I could feel some blockages, and that's as far as I'm gonna take that. I'll let Teresa discuss what she feels comfortable sharing.
Fair enough. So when I first saw her, she offered to conduct a shamanic healing session for me, and I'd never had one done and didn't know what that entailed. So at first she informed me that I needed to set an intention. So my intention was just that I wanted to know what was blocking me from moving forward in my business. If there were any blockages present, what I needed to overcome. And she said she'd do a pre-journey. I don't know if I'm using the right words, Danielle. She'll go on a journey prior to my session with that intention in mind to see what came to her. And then when I got to the session, we talked about what came to her during that journey. And it was beautiful. It actually made me cry because what she told me about was that, okay, let me back up really quick. When I first met her, there was some disconnect with timing and scheduling. And so that we were like ships passing in the night. So she ultimately brought me a plant that had butterflies on it. And I didn't realize the significance of that at the time. But it's beautiful. It's in my foyer at the center, and it's gorgeous. But during the journey, she shared that she saw two paths. One path was to the right, the other one to the left. There's a Y. And we went down the path to the right. There was shadows on both sides. And as we walked down the path to the right, there was more and more butterflies that showed up on that path. And as we walked down the path, the shadows cleared and it got brighter and brighter and brighter. And I was worried and I was nervous and I was fearful. That's what she shared with me during that walk. But as we went down that path, she guided me along with her guides and said, we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Well, come to find out that path that we went down was my business path. And the other path was my emotional, personal path, I guess. So we explored that a little bit, but not too much. It was mainly about the business because that's what I'd asked about. So that was just the journey, but I thought it was interesting that the plant that she brought me was it's called oxalis, I think is how you pronounce it. And it looks like butterfly leaves. And she put it in a butterfly pot. And then her vision journey for me was down a path full of butterflies. I just thought that was so interesting how that came together. But she brought the plant before she had the journey. So she was divinely led to purchase that particular plant and pot, which I thought was interesting.
Wow. I learned here that there was an intention. When I worked with Danielle, it was just, all right, let's see what we got, what comes up. And it turned into cord cutting, which was fabulous. But I never knew that you could set an intention for insight, information on a goal, like starting a business, like you did. Interesting. Did you know the two paths, Teresa, at the time that she was revealing? Did you know, oh, this is the business path, this is the personal path?
No, she revealed that to me because she said she saw a Y and it laid down in front of her, and that's what revealed the two paths. And the right-hand path ended up being the business path, and she revealed that the left-hand path was my emotional, personal path. So then after we talked about what her journey revealed, then we had our actual session, and she cut some cords. She found an emotional entity that I had created over time that needed to go away. She found a spear in my heart from past wounds. I had a corset on my throat, which I found interesting after the fact when I reflected upon it, so she removed the corset, which of course is associated with the throat chakra. And when I was, my sister does voice analysis, and I had done that voice analysis with her, I think in 2019. And she told me what tones I was missing and all that stuff. And so I really didn't do anything with it once I learned that. I was just like, interesting. So after she took the corset off my throat, I was driving home and a song popped in my head. So I pulled it up on my player and I started to play it, and I sang that whole song all the way through without getting any hiccups. But what's significant about that is that up to that point, I couldn't sing that song or many other songs. They were either too high or too low, or my voice would cut out or whatever. But after she took that corset off, I could sing fully. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was the corset. That's what was doing it. And
wow.
So I just thought that was so fascinating.
Your sister with the voice analysis, is that, because I had something like that done a couple of weeks ago, and I did the same thing. That's great, interesting, and I put it to the side.
Yeah.
Is that where they analyze your voice and they can tell you what's going on inside your body, health-wise?
I don't know if it was health-wise. I don't recall that part of it being health-wise, because I guess you have certain tones are related to certain health issues.
Yes.
So in that regard, you can back into it, but figuring out what health issues I was having wasn't part of our discussion. It was just a matter of what tones are missing. And we just did that based on a discussion, and she recorded it and then analyzed it from there.
Interesting. You bring up a song, right? There's one that's been stuck. It's been playing in my head, in my head since, and the song came out when I was a kid. And I know there's a meaning there. And when I listen to it, I mean, yes, I get a little emotional, but there's no connection that I know of right away. But it mentions 3 cities. And I swear, I'm convinced that something is going to come up with these 3 cities.
It could be.
I'm convinced. And I looked deeper into it yesterday, and I'm just sharing because, this is all part of the energy and what's going on. I knew that there's something here. So I looked deeper, and the artist of this song, and it's irrelevant. Nobody probably even knows the song. It was a top 10 hit back in the like mid 70s. The artist passed away last year on what was also the date my father passed away when I was 21.
Oh, wow.
Because I kept looking. I'm like, there's something here. Why am I playing it over and over again? Why is it playing in my head? Why am I singing it? I can't sing. But those things, like the butterflies, Teresa, what was the true significance of the butterflies that she brought to life for you?
At the time that she brought it, she's just like, oh, and I put it in a butterfly pot. Because again, we had missed delivery at first. And I was like, oh, that's nice. So butterflies didn't really have any meaning for me until I had my session with her. And then she told, it was revealed that there was tons of butterflies all over that path. And I'm like, now it makes sense. But butterflies are about metamorphosis and about change and about growth and accepting that and just letting it happen and flow. And so in that regards, well, that totally makes sense with my business and what I'm going through and all that stuff.
Did she tell you things that nobody else would have known?
Yes.
Same here.
So I'll share one. She does energy work throughout the body, and she got to my abdomen, and I don't exactly know what brought it up or how it was determined, but she said something about me having 4 kids. And I said, no, I have 3 kids. She goes, no, I'm getting 4. I said, well, you're not the first person to tell me I have 4 kids, but I don't. So my oldest child was born in 2003. And I thought I was pregnant at the time. It took us a while to get pregnant, but I thought I was pregnant, and then I wasn't. I was like, okay, false alarm, Fast forward to 2012, and I was at the Body, Mind, Spirit Expo, which is a metaphysical expo close to here. I think they're nationwide, actually. Mm-hmm. And I saw a reader, a metaphysical reader, and he was recording the session, and he goes, oh, I see you have 4 kids. I said, I don't. So that was the first time I'd been told that I had 4 kids. He goes, yeah, you do. I said, no, I'm pretty sure I only have 3. And he says, well, what is your oldest? I said, my oldest is a son. He goes, no, your first one was a girl. And she wasn't ready, so she didn't come. He goes, but you did have 4. There was a 4th. The first one didn't come through. And nothing that you did, she just wasn't ready. I'm like, huh. And I was at the time, I was like, huh, okay, whatever, and then fast forward to 2023, and Danielle's the second one to tell me I had 4. So it really makes me think. I'm like, okay. So she asked me, she's like, well, did you grieve it? I'm like, well, no, until 2012, 8 years after I had my son, 9 years after, I didn't even know it was a possibility. I just thought it was, a false alarm that happens. And then, so I just found that very intriguing. But yeah, I've never told anybody that ever.
She told me similar things that nobody would have known, and I had to think about them for a second. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I don't know. Yeah. Danielle, where do you get that stuff from?
Spiritual guidance. I hear things. I see things. The divine senses is what I like to call them.
Are these guides around all of us?
Yes.
I went home last night. We're talking about it, so I'm going to say it. I went home last night, right before bed, closed my eyes, and that's where I got, my quiet moments, call it meditation, whatever. And I was calling upon my spirit guides. I've never done this before, and asked them to reveal themselves. And I didn't get anything, although I fell asleep, so maybe there was something there. And they were knocking at the door, and I didn't answer. But somebody told me that's what you're supposed to do. And, especially Archangel Michael, I was even reaching out to him. Am I doing the right thing?
Yes. It's just like any relationship, especially on the invisible realm, no matter which guardian, guide, universe, God, whatever you believe in, you have free will. And in order to create that relationship, you have to take that free will and make those steps. And then it's about creating a relationship. So just like when you get to know somebody new, there's so much you don't know. So many energies, feeling into them and opening your gifts. Because I believe everybody has the spiritual gifts. We just were not taught to utilize them.
Yep. And especially not taught to quiet all of this around us so that you can hear it. You know, devices, kids, multiple jobs, rent, mortgage, blah, 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 all of that going on here. And it's probably why hundreds of years ago, they didn't have all that stuff and they could really practice that spiritualism where you get that information. And that's what pilot their lives along. What pilots are is Google, you know? Wow. Teresa, what was your takeaway overall in talking with Danielle?
Wow. I just felt more free and more open. And I can't explain. It's so hard to explain. So after the session, I felt like my head was this big, but light. I felt like almost like a hot air balloon. I was like, ooh, you know, I felt so empty, but in a good way. Like stuff had been cleared away and I could finally feel like me. That's the best way I can explain it.
You had, it sounds like you had clarity and peace.
Yes, both of those for sure.
Tell me about the cord cutting, because I did that. I'm intrigued by it. Studied it a little bit. You know, we don't have to say who we cut the cords with, but what was your experience?
I had multiple cords, some of my own creation from emotional cordage. I also had past relationship cordage that she cut. Family ties that were not quite right. You know, there was all kinds of things that she cut. And I guess that's what contributed. I didn't feel anything necessarily when she was actually cutting those or severing those. But I do think it contributed to my overall clarity when I was done and my peacefulness. And she had found a curse that was put upon me and, you know, just all kinds of things. I was wearing body armor and she removed that. And it was just so fascinating. So fascinating. Yeah.
I mean, I just learned before we got on here today that she's continuing her studies. I had no idea. It's, you know, whoa. Yes. Multifaceted. And the cord cutting thing, I had some cords to cut and I was aware of them, relationship related. And one cord that she cut in one relationship, I recently was connected with that person, spent some time with them, just, you know, catching up, whatever. But I will say, you know, instead of me feeling attached to them, it was just like I walked away. I'm like, okay, the cord was cut. And I feel that it was cut.
Yes. Okay. So in that regard, you're right. I had one that was a business relationship and it would pop up every once in a while. And I was like, well, I thought I dealt with that. But after the cord cutting, yeah, it was pretty severed. And I didn't have that animosity or I didn't have that in my life anymore. So I could look at them with, oh, good luck to you kind of deal instead of with whatever else was there previously.
I get it. And, you know, I never thought about it on the business side. I was in a partnership many years ago. Started great, didn't go great. It actually was great in that I launched my own business based on the beginning with this person, and that only lasted about 6 months. But I never thought of the business cord cutting. Interesting. It's almost as if you're equalized after the cord cutting. Like it's just, you're neutral. Neutral, probably the best word.
I would agree with that. Yes.
So business-wise, Teresa, you know, it seems like you got the green light from Danielle, you know, in that session. How we doing?
We're doing good. I just had my 3-year anniversary in October, and things are improving every year, and I'm super excited to be here. I love what I do, and I love the clients that I have, and I'm constantly meeting new people and learning new things, and it's good. It's so good.
Can I ask what type of business it is?
It's a holistic wellness center. And I have a harmonic egg, which uses sound and light therapy to help the client heal. And then I have utilized doTERRA essential oils when it makes sense to do so. And then I also do bioscans, health assessments for people, as well as wellness consultations. So
wow. Interesting. And a lot of what you've described there, I've experienced, I'm aware of it, really super cool stuff. I'm fascinated that the holistic side is very much you, Teresa. And then you gravitated toward Danielle. You wouldn't just go to anybody because that's what you do. That's part of your wheelhouse. It's not like you're an accountant. Let me look this person Danielle up and,
I am an accountant.
I am a psychic.
I'm not an accountant. I have my accounting degree, but that's funny.
That is very funny, isn't it? It's just random. Wow. We're all intuitive in some way. That's what I understand.
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right.
Danielle, we're almost out of time here. Fascinating talking with you both about this whole thing. What is your overall thoughts about the sessions and the work that you did with Teresa?
She's just absolutely amazing. And I'm just so grateful that, right back at you, sweetheart. Just so grateful that she was so open and vulnerable and was able to follow the process, even with the nervousness and the anxiety and even a little fear that's normal to come up when there's stuff that needs to be removed. And she was courageous and brave and loving to herself. And she followed what she felt she needed.
That's a great point, that you have to be fully open to it or it's not going to work. And I've referred people that I'm very close to, and they told me whether it was hypnotherapy or whatever. And I wouldn't recommend anything unless I've done it. So that worked for me in some regards. And they say, well, it didn't work. I don't know. I spent money and blah, blah, blah. I know in my heart, based on their personality, they weren't ready or they weren't open. I just know it. There's no, they can't deny it. You have to be ready to receive and ready to make change. And I guess the key word here is you got to be vulnerable. It's okay. But many of us are not. We're closed, even when it comes to this holistic stuff, we're not really sure. And it gets kind of personal, right?
I've had to be careful with some of the clients that come through because, during our wellness visits, there are some that I know need Danielle's help. I know it, that they could utilize her first. And then the stuff that I do can work that much better because then they can get rid of some of that junk. And so I have referred numerous people to her because I think she's amazing and well worth the time and money.
I totally agree with you. Both of you, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Like seeing it from the other side. Danielle, what's the best way for somebody to find you? I worked with you virtually, Teresa in person, right? We can do it anywhere for anybody as long as you're open to it. How do we find you?
Yes. HelloFutureHealing.com is the best way to find me. You can book a free consultation. You can schedule time to talk, to discuss some things going on, and get to meet me and get some intake and see how you actually feel, what resonates for you.
Excellent. Thank you both. It's wonderful. Once you realize that this stuff is out there, which has been around for almost ever, it's life-changing. Appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Bye.
Call you later. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.